With the, I mean, subjects for the FSB at the moment, you know, are there any kind of, you know, burning agendas and stuff?
Well, the ongoing rollout of broadband is one of the major concerns for all small businesses. Some people who are in the town centre think, oh, well, that's all right, we've got it now, so we don't need to worry about it.
Yeah, we've got fibre in this building, yeah.
Whereas a lot of places still haven't. A lot of places in the rural area are still very much under capacity because of the broadband issues. There is an agenda that's there. It is working well, but there are some issues still coming out that need to be addressed on the broadband, particularly relating to business, which need to be sorted out with BT and the...
Isn't it mad though? We're in 2013, and I know someone who, Abby Tons, who we had on the show recently. She'd put in one of the Facebook business groups that she was delighted she'd finally got broadband. She lives out Sudbury way, sort of thing.
Yes.
You know, at 2 meg. You know, and you can't think. You know, and with her being a graphic designer, she's potentially sending quite hefty data packages and stuff like that. With the, I mean, the FSB, you see, you tend to hear, I mean, the sort of stock net, you know, groups that a lot of people tend to join around here are Bar, who I was involved with for 4 years, and you know, terrific time for them. Suffolk Chamber of Commerce tends to be a bit of an obvious one, and the one that most people have heard of. There's particularly yourself and the Institute of Directors, the IOD, that are always there, but you don't seem as prominently pushed as the others. And I suppose part of that is limited resources and budget. Although you're a national organisation, you know, there are things elsewhere, but where it's different, Suffolk Chamber obviously have staff to do that stuff. Bar themselves, you know, have a very large committee. The IOD will sort of, you know, not mention for now because I don't know enough about how they are currently, sort of thing. But with yourself, there's yourself and a couple of others that obviously have your own businesses as well. That are doing the pushing, the PR, and the kind of, you know, tackling of the issues. Do the FSB essentially have staff locally, or is it?
There is a regional. There is somebody locally that does some of the administrative work and sorting out things and liaising with the politicians and what have you. So yes, there is somebody locally, but it is a limited resource. And that is always going to be the case. Any business organisation that has too much staff is going to come under considerable criticism for a start. The first and fundamental priority of any business organisation is to keep its costs down to the absolute minimum and to ensure that it is efficient and effective as possible in looking after its members. Now, there is always room for improvement, and there is a considerable pressure on the national organisation to improve what it does on a number of areas, and the national organisation is responding to that and is trying to organise itself in a different way to improve how things are done. So I mean that is always going to be the case, but we're also small businesses. We all have our day-to-day distractions. We have to do what we have to do, and we can only put in what time we have to helping other people's causes, and we have to prioritise what we get involved in.
Yeah, you must get, for want of a better phrase, some pretty ludicrous suggestions. You know, stuff that's so business specific to one very small business.
But then, having said that, we've had a very important priority which predates the recent meat issues, which was dealing with the restrictions that were coming, or cost constraints that were coming onto abattoirs locally. We had a very successful meeting in conjunction with the National Federation of Meat Traders at our abattoir, and looking at the specific issues relating to abattoirs. Now, there are a lot of abattoirs, but farmers feed into abattoirs and butchers get their meat from abattoirs. And
so there's that chain.
There's a chain of things that, so a small group might be affected, but it actually has a bigger impact on other people, because you need to be able to source local food locally. If part of that chain gets broken, then it affects other businesses and other businesses' ability to say we use our local meat and we reduce our mileage, because we can if the meat goes from the local field to the abattoir to the butcher locally, the number of miles travelled is significantly reduced, and that helps the restaurant, it helps the butcher, it helps
transport industry as well, to the traffic condition. Yeah,
it all goes round, and so we've looked at that, and we've also looked at been talking about the Food Standards Agency issues and how that impacts on some businesses as well, because there are some issues relating to that which don't really help small businesses. And when you look at the scrutiny that is given to small businesses sometimes, and then we look at the supermarkets and what's happened recently, and our discussions regarding food standards have been ongoing for the last year or two. So I mean, this is all before this issue of how supermarkets comes into it, and we've been looking at all of those issues and have had some concerns about the way that regulation on large businesses is different to that on small businesses. Because sometimes if a food inspector goes into a small business, it's much easier to see things and to pick up them and criticise them.
And they're less able to fight as well. They're less able to challenge the rulings. I mean, a big personal hate of mine is the health and safety industry, because you know, you hear stories of councils having to pay 30 quid to get an electrician in to change a light bulb, you know. Well, no, you didn't see council employees dying in their droves changing light bulbs before.
It can even be a lot more than 30.
Yeah, you know, especially if you're in London, it's probably looking £60, £70 an hour to get someone in just to change a light bulb, when, you know, to be fair, a 14-year-old boy could do it, you know, a 14-year-old kid could do it.
It can be that the person changing the light bulb is travelling 100 miles to change the light bulb. But that is because they take national contracts out, and that contract price is agreed across the board, and they pay it. And
some areas win and some areas lose. Yeah. But also you've got, it really comes down to the commercial savviness of the people that are awarding these contracts and looking at them and saying, is this the best return we can get from here? Or even, I mean, using the FSB as an example, you know, do the FSB, or has it ever been discussed or mooted or anything like that, for the FSB to potentially tender for some of these contracts and distribute the work nationally amongst members?
They wouldn't be tendering for work as such, because that would in some ways conflict with your membership. But there are things that they offer in terms of member benefits as well. So they do look at the bulk buying issues. Now, how well their schemes are organised, there is always room for improvement, and they are always working on it.
I saw when I was doing a spot research.
They do have a credit card machine terminal, which a lot of people use. Again, for small shops, that has been a good contract that a lot of people have used. Again, the technology moves on, pricing structures move on, and you always have to continually be working on your game and make sure that you can pick up on any improvements to the pricing structures and work those through. So I mean, that's always something that will be looked at, and I believe in the future they will get they will be better offers coming through all the time.
Yeah.
There has locally been a car buying scheme that has been worked on again, which has provided potentially very, very good benefits to people who can go and look at that scheme again.
Well, so this would be business owners, or would it be directors as well?
Yeah.
So for example, if they wanted to buy a car,
it's for the business. It has to be for the business, and you have to undertake to keep it for a year or whatever. So you weren't going to buy it and then sell it on somebody else, because that was a potential risk with that. But again, there are ways in which a large organisation can look to do it. But one of the main things we have to make sure in any scheme like that is that it doesn't impact directly on our members. So it had one of the conditions for negotiating a scheme when they were talking to it was that the local garage had to be able to get the car to make it fit for the customer and send it out, and that it wasn't some of these car buying schemes mean that you have to use one garage nationally or something, and it had to be able to be used locally, because we had to make sure that our members weren't disadvantaged.
You're not taking money out of a local garage.
Exactly. So I mean, again, that's the sort of issue where in negotiating, you have to make sure that you consider your membership as well, and that you're not just buying something in a bulk discount and being disadvantaged.
I think that's been something where other organisations have perhaps, again locally, something that I've noticed over the years, have perhaps been a little short-sighted. You know, that they've got a benefit in and said, this is, you know, we've got a benefit here. For an example. You know, I mean, even say take my industry, recruitment, for example. We've got an agreement with, you know, say you've got an organisation, the Small Business Owners Club or whatever, will just invent one, and they say to all of their 500 members, we've got an agreement with Icon Consultants where recruitment will be done at 15% or whatever. That immediately excludes, no other recruitment agency would join that, because I think, well, actually it's a closed shop, you know, it's daft. And I think other organisations have been somewhat short-sighted previously in offering schemes like that.
I think there may be things that the FSB offer that some members might feel unhappy about, but I think probably they're pretty marginal by comparison with the main benefits that are offered in terms of the tax and the revenue, VAT, investigation insurance. And I mean, if I go back to the other benefit, was the legal advice line, and that was something where until recently I hadn't had cause to use it, but I had an issue that arose and thought, well, I'll ring, as soon as I thought, well, I've got this issue, I'll just give them a ring. So I've had 2 or 3 conversations with the solicitor, just checking what I should do and make sure that I do things properly. Now, I haven't got a bill for that. Now, that is actually quite satisfying when, after 10 years of membership, you think, oh, crikey, well, actually, this last 12 months with an investigation on the tax side, and also on the with using the legal advice line, I think I've now probably had my 10 years of membership.
That's funny, because I remember helping a business owner recently. You just sort of jogged my memory on that. I was helping a business owner recently with a legal issue that they'd got, and I sat down and sort of talked through it with them, and I suddenly thought, actually, I know they're in the FSB, but I didn't think to say to them, rather than me helping you, why don't you ring them, because they've got people that know what they're doing. So again, you've jogged me on a benefit of membership. So I mean, really, essentially, those are the kind of things that the FSB can offer, as well as the networking environment. You know, the lobbying group that is taken seriously, probably more so than any other organisation of its type around here. 2,000 members as a voice locally. You've got the legal advice, the tax, the HMRC payroll advice as well. And as well as a number of other benefits like the reduced fuel one you're doing, and there's health and safety advice and stuff. So really, there's actually quite a lot there, and and hopefully anyone that's watching this will sit there and think, actually, there's a lot of benefit to it. And the real downside to it is, when you need this sort of stuff, you'll realise just how good it is. So thank you very much for coming in, Chris. It's been great to see you as well. It's been a good number of years since we've last seen each other, and and again, obviously, keep up the sterling work you and the FSB are doing. So hopefully we'll get you back in. If you get anything else that comes up that think would be certainly newsworthy to viewers and stuff, let us know, and we'll get you back in.
Well,
thanks very much for coming in.
Thank you very much indeed.
Goodbye.